Day one of the 30 days, 30 critique sessions, we have F-64 Elite member Neil Hickman's shot of a peregrine falcon. And I really enjoy this and I can't wait to jump into it. I didn't realize something about this. I can't pre-record any of this stuff. It all has to happen the morning of the critique. I can't remember the last time I recorded a tutorial at 8 o'clock in the morning. Actually, I don't think I've ever recorded a tutorial at 8 o'clock in the morning. The twist? What is it? Well, the twist goes to our friend Brian. And with Brian's twist, I can't use the word. So I can't use one of my absolute favorite adjustment layers in Photoshop. Thanks, Brian. It'll be fun. So here we go. I'm going to dive into my critique process on Neil's image. I'm going to give you a little bit of idea of what these critiques look like as I go through it. I'm only going to do this for the first one or two of them, and then after that, I want you to get into the rhythm of how I critique. So the first thing I want to look at is the vision for this image. And what I try to do is I try to not assess anything technical in the image, but look at the image for what I see as a viewer. I don't ask any of my subscribers ever for raw files. I don't want to see them. The thing that I want to see is what they would put into a frame and hang onto a wall. That's what I want them to submit, because I think that's the only way you get a really good assessment of where you are with your processing with your images. So the vision for this piece, I'm going to jump into it and I'm going to be the viewer that is just engaging with it, and then I'm going to be the photographer that tries to help it. So with this image, I see the speed of flight happening. This is a peregrine falcon. It is hauling. And what I love about this is that you've captured this when it's frozen in motion. And these things move fast. They're one of the fastest animals on the planet. And you've captured it in this frozen moment in time with all the feathers out. I mean, what says flight like this? In my opinion, not much of anything. So I really enjoy the fact that I feel like I'm the peregrine falcon flying with it, swooping next to it. Clearly, there's no grass, there's no trees or anything around. So what I'm seeing is a very tight telephoto shot, which makes it very intimate and puts me in the place with this peregrine falcon. And I feel like I'm one of its wingmen buddies just flying right there with it. And I really like that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of a turn with how I start talking about this image. I talked about what I'm engaged with in it. I talked about what I enjoy about the image. I talked nothing about technicalities other than maybe the shutter speed and the ability for capturing this. Now what I want to do is talk about the things that I'm having a disconnect with. So as a photographer viewer, when I saw this as a thumbnail, everything just kind of blended together. It was almost like the background had the same coloring as the bird in the foreground. And what's happening here is that this creates a sense of flatness, and it doesn't create a good sense of depth. And the reason why is because the color plane is very much similar on the background as it is on the bird itself. So I want to do some color separation here to make sure that the bird has the most saturation and the background has least saturation. My second disconnect is that it feels like the background is trying to be as sharpened as the bird, and you really don't want that. If you're going to be using sharpening techniques for wildlife images, it's a really good idea to ensure that it's only sharpening the animal, the object, and not everything else around it. And I can see that by, if I look back here, if I just zoom in here, you can see that the bokeh areas, the blurred areas, look like they want to retain detail. Well, they're not supposed to. So we're going to do something about that. And the third disconnect that I have is something that I have a lot with wildlife images, and that's the eye contact. While you do have the eye tack sharp, and that's usually the thing that most wildlife photographers aspire to get, is that beautiful tack sharp eye. I want to take it up a notch, and I want to say, okay, what else are you doing with that eye? I'm going to take a dive into Photoshop, and we are going to talk about what we can do to help make this image have a better connection with the viewer. So I talk about what I like about it, I talk about what I have a disconnect from, and now I'm going to address all the things that I have a disconnect from to help this person make a better connection with the viewer. Okay, so first things first, I need to make a subject selection and remove the bird from the background. So I'm going to go to select, and I'm just going to go to subject. And the new subject selection does a phenomenal job. I know it's going to already. It's going to do a phenomenal job of selecting the bird. So we got this beautiful selection of the bird. All I'm going to do is press Command or Control J to duplicate it. Now, what you're wondering is, okay, why would I duplicate that? Well, I need to blur the background. But if I blur the background without separating the bird from the background, it will also blur the feathers of the bird. So I need to basically hide the bird, make a selection for it, hide it, and then I need to expand this selection and fill it. That way, when I blur the background, I'm not going to get any of the bird's feathers blurred with it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go to Select, go to Modify, Expand, and I'm going to expand that by about 12 pixels. Okay, so now I've got a selection for the bird. On this background, I'm going to press Shift F5 and Content Aware Fill. Okay, now I don't want to use generative fill because I don't think generative fill does a very good job these days. If this was a high quality raw file, there would be any noise or anything in that. It would just look like plastic. So that's why I prefer content aware fill. So now I've got my bird separated from the background. I can do anything I want to the background. This is great. So since I can't use one of my favorite things that I really enjoy because my buddy Brian made sure that I couldn't say it, I'm going to use HSL adjustment layer, but I normally would use that which we cannot speak of today. Okay, so I'm going to go into the HSL adjustment layer, and in the HSL adjustment layer, I'm just going to drop the saturation of the background just a little bit, and I'm going to shift the hue of that background just a little bit so it's slightly different than the hue of the bird itself. And then I might make it a little bit brighter. Okay, so now we'll look at our background there. You see we're reducing the saturation of the background. It actually makes it look like there's more saturation in our bird, but there's not. So on that background, I'm also going to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and then I'm going to drop this quite a bit, because I just need to raise this up until I get the detail blurred. I just don't want that sharpness back there. And it really is just like a 1 pixel blur. This is one of the things where if just the bird was sharpened, we wouldn't have to do that to begin with. Now, the last thing I want to do to address the last disconnect I had was with the eyeball of the bird. So I'm going to zoom into the peregrine falcon here, and I'm going to make a selection of the bird's eye. I'm going to use the quick selection tool and just click the eye. Sometimes you have to make that a little bit smaller, press Alt or Option and paint around it. I just want that eye right there. Okay, really as best as I can get it, just that eye. And pixel by pixel, it's a good idea to get as best as you can. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a curves adjustment layer on here. And this might be a wonky curve, but check this out. Let's make this a little bit brighter, okay? Just like that right there in the darker areas. And then those mid-tone areas, we'll pull that down. Basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to brighten that eye a little bit so I make eye contact with it, okay? And then I might pull that up or down a little bit. Now, if I zoom out, this doesn't look like we did a whole lot, but look at that. The bird's actually looking at me now. So what I can do is also just, once I get it set, just slowly start to taper down the opacity until I get a good blend of the best of both worlds. And look at that. Okay, so let's look at the original image. Boom, okay? It's not bad. Great bones. There's a lot of good structure to this image. Phenomenal capture. But what did we do to make it better? Well, we separated the bird from the background, dropped a little bit of the saturation away from the background so it's not quite as bright and in my face. That way the bird could have the most saturation because that's where our eye is going to go. There's a couple tools that I use, and I've included that into the self-critique guide, and that's the tone navigation map and the color evaluation map. So I'll press play on both of those. And the reason why I do this is I always assess what's working, what's not working specifically with color. So I'm going to put the tone navigation map on top, and did that fix our image here? Now, do we have the viewer going where we want them to? Yes, most of the highlight is on this spot here. Most of which here is going to come from color though, with the color reduction of the background. You see that? That's the intensity of how bright that background was. That means that the viewer is actually looking at that intense color more than they are at the bird itself, because the highest potency of color intensity is actually in the background rather than on the bird. What we see through this evaluation, this color evaluation here, is that the saturation of the feet and the beak of the bird, which are the highest areas of saturation in the bird, were equal to the background, which creates a sense of flatness. So look at that. That's how we analyze it while we're doing it. And this is all covered in the self-critique guide as well. Great job on this image. Thank you very much for sharing this with us. This is awesome work, Neil. For our showcase, we have an image from John Dobson called After the Sortie. And I saw the thumbnail for this as I was scrolling through my images, and it just stopped me dead in my tracks. John, this image nails it. This nails the mood of what it feels like to be done with that mission. And what this reminds me of is when I was in Afghanistan and the guys would come back from their night flights. And what I loved the most about it was just the dramatic light that would be out there from the sand that would be kicked up, and then the light would be busting through the sand, kind of creating this atmosphere of what felt like fog in the night sky with the lights just beaming on them. And it was really awesome to know that all my buddies had made it back safely, and that's what this reminds me of. So yes, I have a little bit of a bias to this image, but John, I think you did a fantastic job with this one. Now, there's two things that I also want to cover in this, and I'm probably not going to cover every single time, but I want to cover some transparency issues. Some people are wondering, how am I going to randomize this? I got over 375 images submitted to me. So how I'm randomizing this is I built a spreadsheet, and that spreadsheet has a randomizer button, and I'm legitimately just randomly pressing that button, and whatever image it lands on is the image that I critique. Now, some people have submitted more than one image. What do I do in that case? Well, I won't use the same person twice throughout the 30 days, because I don't think that's fair for everybody else. But that doesn't mean that I won't showcase them more than once. If I think someone's doing a fantastic job and should be shown more than once, they will be shown more than once. But when it comes to the critiques, I'm only doing one per person. The other area of transparency that I want to showcase here is the donations. So the donations are coming in three different ways now, and this was well beyond what I had expected. The first way is subscribers and email signups using the self-critique guide. Those are 25 cents per subscriber and 50 cents per self-critique guide. As you can see, we've got quite a bit of downloads on that. Awesome. Keep going. You can keep subscribing, because the more you do that, the more goes to Give Kids Art. I will be capping that at $6,400, because that's the ideal donation that I want from that. Okay. And also, I'm not Mr. Beast here, so I can't be throwing out tons of cash for subscribers, okay? It just doesn't work like that in the photo industry. I'm a baby, little teeny tiny channel, okay? The second place, though, that donations are coming from is anytime someone becomes an elite member on F64 Academy. Anytime someone becomes an F64 Academy elite member, $4 for monthly and $20 for annual. As many people as sign up, as many donations are going to go through from that. So if you are an F64 Elite member, now's a great time to watch your money help kids too. And the last way that we're donating to Give Kids Art is sheerly from subscribers having the goodness out of their heart to donate. And that's where quite a bit of donations have come for Give Kids Art. And that is fantastic. When I first started this, I didn't even really think about that, but the question came up quite a few times. How can I donate? So we made a donation page. We set the goal tentatively to $6,400 to match the subscriber goal. But as far as that goes, is as far as we're going to let it go. I just received a message last night from my point of contact at Give Kids Art, and I got to tell you that they are just as excited about this as we are, and that is awesome. So today's video was a little bit longer because I wanted to show you how I go through my critique sessions and kind of talk through it. I'll probably do the same thing for tomorrow's. And then I wanted to talk about the transparency of what's going on with this, so that you know that the images are being selected randomly, and that so you also know that there is transparency in the donation process and how that's going to be collected. But so far with all donations, at the time of recording this, we're looking at $1,533, and we just started for Give Kids Art. This is incredible. All right, day one is done. Go ahead and put your comment below. Put twist if you want to change or alter how tomorrow's critique is going to go. Be creative. Be just as creative with your twist as you are with your artistic vision, and this is going to be fun. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. 25 cents goes to Give Kids Art. 50 cents goes to Give Kids Art if you download the self-critique guide. $4 goes to Give Kids Art if you become an F64 Elite member. $20 goes to Give Kids Art if you become an annual F64 Elite member. I can't wait to see what's coming tomorrow. I certainly hope you enjoyed day one as much as I did.